Hi there, this is Benjamin Ferrante, and this video is about keyboard shortcuts and my cheat sheets for different programs that I'm offering. In today's workplace, in order to be competitive, you have to get things done as fast as you can. User interfaces are always evolving, but for the most part, it's good old point and click, menu and button interfaces, which are slow and ineffective. So until PCs can interface directly with our brain and take commands as soon as you think them, the fastest way to execute commands is to use shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts, scripts, actions, macros, even program-specific mouse functionality. If you want to get faster, you need to use those shortcuts. So great, you want to use the shortcuts, but if you're anything like me, there are a few problems. So many programs in our toolbox. Each program has tons of shortcuts. Committing them to memory can be a chore. But in my opinion, it's worth it to commit it to memory. After a while, it becomes muscle memory, and you don't even think about what you're doing. Then you become addicted to them. You start searching all over for little hidden tricks that each program had, and then you start creating your own keyboard shortcuts. And that gives you additional problems of having to remember all the custom keyboard shortcuts that you create. Not to mention I'd sometimes only use some programs for a month here, take a break as I'm working on a different project, and when I would come back to the program after maybe a month of being away from it, I'd be a little rusty. So it would be really helpful to have some kind of a study guide to help me memorize these things or get a refresher whenever I needed it. And that's what I would use these guides for. Now, over the years, I've seen a bunch of posters and cheat sheets, and I've used them. I've found them helpful to varying degrees, but none of them had what I wanted, so I created my own. And it occurred to me that others might see value and see usefulness in my study guides, so I'm offering them to you. I'm hoping you don't mind throwing a couple bucks my way for these, because they did take some time to make. With that being said, I wanted to go over the thought process for the current layout of my posters so you can get the most out of them. When I design the posters, at least for me, I'm a visual learner, and I try to add visual elements to the tools I use for studying. For instance, I use color-coded key combinations for a quicker read. An example on the poster is that Control-Shift, and I do keep them consistent throughout all of my posters, would be color-coded orange, so that whenever I'm looking around, if I see orange, it's a Control-Shift. If I see orange on this keyboard layout, it's Control-Shift-H is this particular keyboard shortcut. And on the list, Control-Shift-B, I know it's for this particular shortcut. It just helps me read these things faster. But the other thing that I would do is break them into sections. Like what I found is that in the first section, if you're looking for a specific keyboard shortcut, a simple list view is the fastest way to go ahead and find these keyboard shortcuts. And I would try to break them down by the menu. The bottom part is a keyboard layout. I found it to be helpful for two other reasons. For one thing, a lot of these programs put a lot of thought into where they put these keyboard shortcuts. And if you could see the patterns of how they've designed it, sometimes it's easier to remember them by seeing these patterns. At least I remember them better when I see the patterns of how they've laid the shortcuts out on the keyboard. The other thing, though, is when you're creating your own keyboard shortcuts, I find it very helpful to be able to quickly look and see what's available, like what's been used. And when you couple that with the patterns, if they're using, say you're making a keyboard shortcut that doesn't exist, but it's similar to ones that do exist, maybe you put it with those if there's space available. But I do find it helpful to have the keyboard layout for that, to be able to see what's available. Whatever I would have leftover space, I would try to add maybe some tricks or hidden tricks or mouse functionality, or I'm going to go over, I would use this to customize whatever I want to remember at that time. So there's that extra section wherever I have leftover space. It'll be like the extra program specific stuff that, depending on the program, I'll put different stuff in there. I went ahead and built these things in two different formats in case one's like a traditional poster format, and the other one's a trifold format. If you want to try and print it up, make it into a little trifold card that you can put on your desk. And then I also left a layer of all the customizable graphics that I've used over the years. Because as I said earlier, it's not just keyboard shortcuts, mouse input, whatever your input devices are, and I've used different ones over the years, how you set them up. It may be difficult to remember what you assign to those extra buttons. So I would also use these graphics like this is the Logitech G13, or Wacom tablets buttons, the pens, or just I might put in a list of my custom keyboard shortcuts, or mouse functionality for a particular program, 12 button, like 7-button mouse. These are the things that I would use if I'm trying to remember how I set up my devices. So I left them all in here on a layer so that if you wanted to come in here and customize this and you have access to Illustrator, you'll be able to just do that and give you the ability to make this a little bit more your own. Right now, these are formatted for the PC because that's generally what I'm using. If there's an interest in these keyboard shortcut posters, may go ahead and put the Mac versions up here. The other thing that I would say about this is that I have a bunch of these that I have, but I'm going to clean them up so that they all maintain the same format. But I have them for Moto, Photoshop, ZBrush, Illustrator, Maya, Blender, a couple of programs that I've used that I've had these things for in the past. So that's about it, actually. I think it covers over all the basics here. So, I appreciate your time, and I hope you find them useful. Thanks.